I had the unique opportunity of being a Palace Acquire intern, and it was basically an exceptional scholar type program. You come in for a 3-year internship, but the key to it was these 3 to 6 to 9 month rotations across a multitude of different functional areas. I think that was the core framework that kind of set me up for success later in life. It was, as an IT guy, you still got through resourcing, you got through acquisition, you got through other areas that you never would have touched in a traditional sense of, I come in and I'm a system administrator, a database programmer, or the like. So it really set up fundamental cross-functional opportunities. It certainly broadened the networking ties. And so for a 3-year period, you literally rotate around and learn a whole bunch of different functional areas, how they work together, potentially how they don't work well together, and then you're kind of that trusted insider as well that can kind of bridge gaps between functional areas. So that internship, it's still alive today. It's still being used through the OPM processes. Very good program to really bring up those college graduates that need a breadth of understanding of what's going on in the federal space, so that hopefully one day when they do become a leader, they've got a good brush of resourcing and IT and operations and intelligence and those kind of mission areas. It goes back to, I think, core principles. Always thought small can be big. You know, we're all one piece of a very large puzzle. And my literally claim to success was a very small task that I did one day, inventorying computers. It was a shortfall in the organization. We had hundreds of computers sitting in a warehouse. We needed to inventory them and get them out. And I just did it. And it wasn't about whether it was below my grade or above my grade. It was an organizational need. And I don't say that from an inventory perspective, but it goes back into how do you fit into your organization? How do you fill the gaps and the seams that your organization needs? And so that day, I actually had one of my future bosses, very senior lady, come in and say, hey, this is great you're doing this, but I got some bigger things for you as well. And it really just set the bar for the next couple years on projects that I worked for. And I think it just fundamentally showed to her that I was willing to roll up the sleeves and just go to work. And I still have that premise, even kind of as a more senior leader. I think we should be careful not to just say, well, I'm just going to set the vision side of it and let everybody else work the details. Sometimes you got to roll up the sleeves and show you're part of the problem, no matter how small sometimes. Because those small problems oftentimes are just small examples of the bigger issues that are at hand in the organization. I kind of like talk to two things. One was to find the holes in the organization. Bureaucracies, federal organizations, we build a lot of processes. Some have much more value than others in the organization moving ahead. And so I always tell folks, focus on the holes, focus on the gaps, focus on the shortfalls. The normal processes that are going well, let them keep going. Don't focus on those. We have few resources today. And if you focus on those, that's what brings the organization forward. You take the 5 or 10% areas that make the 30 and 40% difference to the organization. And kind of to go with that is, you know, IT is a quickly changing world. I mean, it's almost impossible to stay completely up. And as a CTO, it's kind of my biggest challenge. I can't read enough about what's going on. But you oftentimes in federal space, you also see the adversity to change. And I think you just have to fundamentally accept change. It's going to happen, and the more you accept it, the better it is to move on and to learn and to adjust yourself. I think the worst thing we do inside the federal space is we don't often adopt that change quickly enough, and then we wonder, you know, 2 and 3 and 4 years later how we got to where we are. So it's embrace change, find the holes in the organization, and that's really what's going to make an organization innovative, where people want to work, and when they come into work saying, hey, I made a difference today. I didn't just turn the ratchet one quarter turn and went home. And I think that's fundamentally what people want to bring to an organization. Probably just networking in general. You know, I grew up in kind of the intelligence career field as a comm officer type, and you realize very quickly that although the Air Force is a very, very large organization, it's also a very small organization. And so building relationships, building internally to your organization as well as with industry is absolutely critical. So there's not anything that we do today, my boss says, that doesn't tie into industry base. And so it's internally build your relationships and externally build your relationships. And I think it goes into a fundamental strategy you see externally today of crowdsourcing, right? I mean, there's such power of the internet and there's such power of social networking and connections that you ought to leverage that. And that's how you really move forward. And there's no sense in, especially in the federal space, when you can legally plagiarize policies and best of breeds. Plagiarize, use best of breeds, but you do that by understanding what's going on in the environment around you. If you don't have those connections, then you're going to find yourself creating things that don't necessarily, or that have already been done and don't provide as much value as things that are a little bit more innovative that may help the larger enterprise as well. I'm a huge believer in the secondary education, the bachelor's and master's pieces. And I emphasize those not necessarily from the learn a functional trade perspective, but it's the can you speak, can you write, do you have the discipline, do you have the research skills? Again, it's such a quickly changing world. It's really about how well you can network, find answers, research answers, and because the world's changing so fast. So that's the fundamental foundation to everybody. It's kind of the core of the cake. And then to me, the icing becomes, at this stage of my career, I can't necessarily dedicate 3 years to going back and getting another master's. It's not real. But how do I use social media, social networking to extend the reach, to research topics very quickly through things like Twitter and LinkedIn, to again keep that network connection strong, but allow me to research literally a vast array of topics so I can drill into the areas that I'm working in that year or over those next 2 years. So it's kind of that fundamental layer of discipline and research that you get through educational processes, and then a layer above it through social media and networking that really provide the icing on the cake to help you, kind of form the two things together to be a strong leader in the Air Force. It's about supporting the country, I think, at the end of the day. We have so many opportunities in the federal space. You see here in the Mobile Gov Summit today, the agricultural, Homeland Defense, Department of Defense. There's so many areas that truly need innovative thought and leadership and drive and energy to take these things forward. And I think most people that are in federal service do have that internal instinct in them. And that's really what I think is going to keep driving, in my case, civil service or even our military officers and moving forward is that drive for country, and then finding the opportunities to use their skills to, certainly there's a, support the family construct, but there's the support the country and moving forward in our defense and call it strength as a nation.